method of determining like cause of death and all that?
I mean, also from the sounds of it, just the medicine recall knowledge allows you to do that, but that allows you to do it in half the time. So yes, I think that's built into the medicine skill.
Mm-hmm.
Copy that.
Pete, can I ask your professional opinion?
Sure.
So I'm trying to pick my second level feat, and I have Healing Hands, healed as D10 instead of D8, or Reach, which spend one action, increase my spell range by 30 feet. Do you have a...
I used Healing Hands, I think, on my cleric build, but Reach is very good.
I was going to say, I'm really kind of leaning towards Reach.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it.
Godless healing looks pretty damn good.
You have 2 clerics? I would love that. 2 clerics on the team, you're like, I don't need that god shit, I got my own stuff.
Get additional 5 hit points on a successful attempt to treat wounds, and instead of being blocked for a day, you only get blocked for an hour from battle medicine.
Nice.
I'm looking for that feat that prevents me from getting rat stabbed again.
Stabbed by rats?
Don't know if that one exists.
We got a proposal from New Look Home Design for this flip that we're doing.
Cool.
We're like, this price on the roof, windows, siding, and like trimming out all the windows.
Mm-hmm.
We're like $48,000.
Yeah, that sounded right.
So we took their estimate, which was probably the best proposal I've ever seen. I don't know what you guys are using, but I should probably email you this proposal that they sent to us just so you can see how fucking sharp it is.
I'd love to. Right now we use Service Titan, which is very good as far as leaving a proposal. Okay, the deck doesn't seem to have any cards. Interesting. I can see cards in it. Let me add some cards to it.
But I thought it was odd that they were charging $16,000 for the siding and $16,000 for the trim. Did like trim coil stock go through the roof or something?
Honestly, but I don't know. I haven't really looked into the pricing on that sort of stuff anymore, but I wouldn't be surprised given that it's kind of difficult with the market as it is to sometimes get all of the items that you need in a timely fashion.
Thoughts on the Titan Wrestler feat?
Titan Wrestler, let me take a look, see here.
You can attempt to disarm, grapple, shove, or trip creatures up to 2 sizes larger. I just don't know what you have to do. this version to like disarm grappling?
It's largely an athletics check of some sort, usually associated, and you keep in mind that I mean it's still an attack. So if you make multiple attacks a turn, you still get -5. Pardon me, one moment. You still get -5 per. But the thing is that like say if you were to push them down, well, that would make them like flat-footed, and then they have to waste an action to stand up and all sorts of other stuff, and it would open them up to your allies. So it just depends on circumstance. Oh, we're in the wrong room too. We're in the D&D room.
What should we be in?
A Pathfinder.
Takes her, daily aim level from, a 3 or a 4 down to like a 1 or a 2. Said he can't join this chat.
No problem. One moment. Let me.
This is an exclusive club.
There we go.
His name was Mike. It was.
Once Pete gets here, we'll get started recapping. Okay.
On our chat dialogue, like when I click on something, how do you get it to do the expanded thing where it shows you more information about like, what was actually rolled and, traits and actions and things
Okay.
as opposed to just the number?
So if you hover over the number, it shows you everything that went into that. So for example, the 9, if you look at it, you can see what the roll was plus the bonus plus the.
0, 1 plus 8.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. And then
Mm-hmm. Depending on the class, you would have gained like a class feat and possibly a skill feat. Just leveling to 2 will bump almost all of your statistics at least by 1, and then certain other classes gain spells or whatever stuff. Well, if you level yourself to 2, that will update your proficiencies and such, so that will handle most of the skills and such, but as far as feats go, you'll have to manually do that. Yep, that means trained. So, and trained, if you look at the character sheet, what it means is that it's usually your level +3, if I'm not mistaken. Well, let me take a look-see at your character sheet really quick.
The hit points didn't change. They were 60.
Well, your hit points you'll have to update as well, but Currently, okay, so you've adjusted your level to 2, and trained is actually, my apologies, it's 2 plus your level, not 3. So this looks right.
Okay, so that is right then.
Yep, and hit points are just based on your class plus your constitution modifier, so whatever amount of hit points you gain every level per your class, that's what you would gain. Fair. Mm.
Seven or in 9 spells? Took me a second, but I got there. I got it. Was ready to get there. Yeah, because there's a couple of things around with the second level. That might be cleric excellence and arcane sex. Last skill. But that's the cantrips. Now I got to 7.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, we made the Royal League, decided that the whole swashbuckler thing was annoying and useless and frustrating. So outwardly, nothing will really change as far as characters and stuff like that. But he is now a magus instead of a swashbuckler.
Cool.
Oh, cool. So we'll see how that goes.
Absolutely.
Which means I now get all these crazy spells. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Just
a small white magus that, carries a rapier.
yep, yep. It looks vaguely like a cat. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's a small white rope thing with whiskers and a tail. Alright, so let me know if I'm reading this right, Pete.
You sure?
Exacting strike. You make a controlled attack, fully accounting for your momentum. You make a strike. The strike gains the following failure effects. Failure. This attack does. Oh, okay. So only if it fails, it doesn't counter your multiple attack penalty.
Mm-hmm. Just makes it. There's a couple of feats or abilities that just make it so that you have less of a penalty for failing. Um, but exacting strike's pretty decent, just because I know a lot of fighters take power attack, and power attack is sort of an inverse of it. You're taking 2 actions to go after 1 attack, trying to hit with your highest attack bonus and such. And whereas this one is you're trying to get in as many attacks as possible, and if the first one fails, at least the second one's not hindered by it. Just different builds.
Yeah, the other one I was looking at was Brutish Shove.
Take a
Two-handed melee weapon, throwing your weight behind your attack, your opponent hard enough to make it stumble back. make a strike with a two-handed melee weapon. If you hit the target that is your size or smaller, that creature is flat-footed until the end of your next turn, and you can automatically shove it. So using a reach weapon, I should be able to make an attack and push him away from me so that he's got to pass through my threatened area if he wants to get to me.
He could still step if he wanted to, most likely, because the thing is that a step is you're using a move action to move 5 feet, and so you don't provoke anything for doing that. But in the event that they didn't step, yes, you would get a possible attack of opportunity. Also, what you could do is shove them with a brutish shove and then move back, and then they would have to take more movement to get to you and such. There's a couple of different tactical ways to utilize that. Yeah. Also, when your opponent has to move, of course, they have to take an action, so it makes it so that there's less attacks against you depending on how things wind up, etc. So, but here I'm gonna message Pete, and then we're gonna get started here, at least with the recap. I know that everyone's still working on their character sheets.
I jumped on. I was being an idiot. My brain's being slow tonight.
Oh, no problem. I was gonna say, I thought you saw you're in the Roll20 thing. Cool. Well, picking up where we last left off. So, your group was still engaged in trying to solve the bladesmith's dilemma. Again, just a reminder, the bladesmith Antonio Torres had almost finished work on a pair of matching jeweled daggers for a client of his. All that remained was some jewel adornments to them, and they were being worked on by Alaric Goldhill and his jewelers. The courier carrying the blades was waylaid on the way back to his shop, and the blades were taken, nothing else. So that was months ago now that we played out that beginning of this sort of investigation. But you guys have slowly but surely tracked or tried to find a method to track the blades, which had led you to the far side of Old Town, to a brothel owned by Raul Rodrigo, and you slowly were able to discern that it's likely some thieves associated with La Rosa Negra were the ones that possibly absconded with the blades. You think you may have possibly stumbled into a issue between Raul and an individual known as Adlat Lockowin, who controls like sort of a weapons and armor business as well as mercenaries for hire out of a storefront in Old Town. The storefront is very closely associated with his home, which is at the rear of his store, and an inn that, let me see, I've got the name right here next to Lockwin's business. Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. There we go. Ah, yes, La Espina de la Rosa is the name of the inn. You guys checked out the area around the business of Lockwin's storefront. You went over to the bar, and after some fanfare of trying to get in and nearly getting into a bar fight with several of the individuals there, found a lot of Lockwin's staff off duty at the inn. It turns out that Lockwin also owns the inn next door, and so you guys sort of spoke around with the guards that were off duty at the inn. In addition, going through a number of different motions with like the bard that was there, some of the other guards, a individual that was you came to know as Luis Garcia, who is a bookkeeper for Lockwin, who has a bit of a drinking problem, it would seem. Uh, Towards the end of that evening, you guys were there was a rainstorm rolling in, and you were thinking about leaving. You stayed around for a little bit longer and ran into the undead Capitan de la Muerte, who you all sort of gave a wide berth to. This was the first time of the group encountering him. However, he came into La Espina de la Rosa and sat down in the chair and the area that was designated for him. And he seemed to begin to use the navigator's tools to sort of uh, look about the map and make some notes that were picked up by Ser, as far as it looks like he's either searching or crossing off islands in some sort of trial and error as he goes. It looks like he's maybe trying to sail off to the northern isles next from a cove that's hidden nearby. But um, that aside, you all cased the inn. Oh, well, you're okay. No. Yes, you did play a song and a tune, a traditional song for him that Kane joined in and assisted you with, and the Capitan did throw you some pirate gold for your trouble. Um, but and that was the assist that Sarah needed in order to actually be able to see the map. Um, that aside, though, you guys case the rest of the area around Lochwin's establishment and found it extraordinarily well guarded. And it was about that point in time that you all decided to go back to the King's Rest on the Silkside docks and, sort of plot out your next course of action. Um, a couple of other things of note. You ran into a nobleman from the Kingsland, Lord Vincenzo Mantova, who was shanghaied by the Crimson Highwaymen and robbed in broad daylight in the middle of the marketplace of Old Town. Um, that was another instance where Ko was able to work his way into Vincenzo's good graces, although perhaps not in the good graces of the people of uh, Porta del Sol, as he sort of appealed to the Kingsland sensibilities of Vincenzo Mantova. Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, and that aside, uh, trying to think of what else. I think that's everything that I meant to cover. There's some other things from several sessions ago, but those are sort of woven into the storyline at this point. If anyone needs any refreshers on any of that, you can feel free to ask me any questions. But that said, we're picking back up in the next morning after you all have leveled up. You're back in your room in the at the King's Rest. You still have a number of days left on your. You've again been lent these rooms by the proprietor of the King's Rest for having cleared out his basement for a week. So you have about 5 more days before you need to either pay for the room moving forward or make other accommodations. But that said, we'll pick it up there. Let me just move the map to the King's Rest.
Yeah, the roll 21. So don't add the whatever points you get from your class to that. That's just telling the character sheet I get 8 hit points or 10 hit points per level. Once you increase level 2, it does the math for you.
Interesting. I'll try to take a look at it a little bit later. Sure. hmm I think that at will just means you can do it all the time. And Detect magic, of course, is so detect magic doesn't work like it does in D&D. What detect magic is in Pathfinder is it's a pulse, and what the pulse tells you is it tells you everything that's magical within the amount of feet of the spell. But um, that include you can like block out items that you know are magical in that pulse to try to pick up, new signatures, etc. But that means that it's not something that's persistent constantly. If you're constantly detecting magic, what you're doing is you're moving like 30 feet pulsing, moving 30 feet pulsing, moving 30 feet pulsing is essentially what it does. And it's actually one of the adventuring, like the options that you can take as you're going into like an adventuring area or mode is that if you want to detect magic the entire time, you're essentially taking one of your actions and just concentrating on detect magic constantly. Mm.
So, Mike, how are you saying you can adjust your hit points? Because I typed in level 2 into my Pathfinder character sheet, and it doesn't seem to have adjusted my hit points.
Yeah, I had to go in manually and go to where it showed the hit point thing, and there's a little gear to the upper left-hand corner, kind of faded, where it says max. It's just up and to the left of that. And I went in there and just changed it. So when you hit the gearbox, it drops down the thing where you can put in your hit points. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just trying to figure out what hit point should be for a second level fighter.
It's at the beginning of your class in the player's handbook. It shows you how many, like, I think it's 10, but I'm not 100% for fighter. It might be a little bit higher, but it's whatever that plus your con. So it's a flat amount. And let me see here, fighter 2E.
So I should have around 20 hit points.
Somewhere in that, depending on your con.
I have a 12 con.
And also your race. So the things that add to your hit points initially is your race, your class, and your con. And then after that, it is your class that is added plus your con every level. So for example, let me see here, human, Pathfinder 2E.
Yeah, the Pathfinder 2E character builder, it's showing me at 30 hit points, but I just can't translate that into, I guess I just...
All right, so humans start with 8. Then if I look at your sheet, let me see here, character sheet. Your con is +1, so it would have been 9. And then fighter 2E, Pathfinder.
Sorry to hold you guys up.
Oh, you're good. So fighter gains 10 plus the Constitution modifier. So you started with 8, 9, so 19 hit points was your number of hit points last level. And then you gain 10 plus 1, so you should be at 30.
All right, that makes sense.
Alrighty. But you all wake up and are back in the common room the next morning. Gabriel is still with all of you. As he says, well, I do not know if or what course of action you intend to take with Mr. Lockwood, but we can certainly look into other avenues as well if we're not as comfortable that he may be the one that did it. Although you had mentioned that the bookman or the bookkeeper, he seemed to have had something about the daggers come across his desk at some point. Indeed. Indeed, that he does. He's a very dangerous individual, it would seem. At least Carmen had given us every indication that that was the case.
To that map that we were looking at from the pirate captain.
You looked at the map downstairs. Just remember that there's a map set up on almost every table in every inn in the Sun-Kissed Isles, and so you consulted with the map that was downstairs that the Novits provide in the event that the Capitan visits, but you don't have a personal copy yourselves. You just, had consulted that map to gather um, from everything that you were looking at, there was a cove that you presume that Capitan Di Muerto was secreting his ship in, given the markings on the map. And then, in addition to that, it looked like he was plotting a course on the map in there to an island that is named Isla de Sabiduria, which is the Isle of Wisdom, ruled over by the Virrey Damien Equino. But there were some other islands that he had crossed off to the south.
So we're not gonna pursue that. We're not going to be going after that one right yet. So we're going to take care of this dragon business first. That would be my preference.
Better to leave no business unfinished.
Especially since if we're trying to build some kind of a reputation on abandoning.
Reputation.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid as possible. I have lost. Take a look at his house or come at it from a different angle and walk through where his two place of business. That way. Try to go further north and come south.
Mm.
That direction goes out to that angle. And it would make sense as sort of be the heaviest around the cavern and right now. But we try to do it in a line down. I have no ability something to be able to sneak into something very easily. That's not.
Well, I'm one for subterfuge, but also stealth, right?
Just an honest flirt. What can I say?
The deception and trickery can mean a lot of things. As we were speaking previously, we can cause a distraction if necessary. But certainly, if you're doing something that will leave a mark, causing a distraction is not always a good idea.
Are we planning to report back to the Red Orchid?
Well, we're also going to ask if he had copies or knew of any drawings that were missing. That the at the bar said that he stumbled across drawings of the daggers. We're going to double check where those drawings may come from.
Then we got to go back to the problem. Go back to Torres.
Right, and we can give him an update because he may or may not want to pursue this further, depending on who we believe it is.
That's a good idea. I mean, I still like the idea of you that had about talking. I think we should be telling everyone we meet about the captain too.
And how much he loved us.
Exactly. Well, he loved one. I
Gabriel speaks up and says, also, with regards to following up any leads on Capitan de la Muerte, getting out of the city could be difficult in the next few days.
Why?
The funeral of Mateo's son is going to be, I believe, 2 sundowns from now.
We shut the whole city down.
I would gather that ships, if they were within range to arrive, would be arriving into ports within the next day or two, and many of them are going to be looking to stay at least through the funeral. So, in addition, for events such as this, usually well, not usually, in almost every instance where a member of the Rodrigo family passes, all of the Viray will show up to pay their respects.
A sight to behold.
They are the rulers of the Sun-Kissed Isle under Lord Mateo Rodrigo. Under the Pirate King, the Viray were essentially his lieutenants and ship captains, those that had sort of declared fealty when he named himself King of the Isles. Each of them have ancestral right to the various isles that they laid claim to, except in instances where something has interfered with that. It is a long and complicated history, but I would say that the best thing would be like these are courtiers to a king in the other lands further away. Of course, as you know, the Kingsland technically rules over the Isles, and all of them sort of are to pay up their respects to the crown as well. But in the Viray's mind, they are ruled over by Mateo Rodrigo. It would be disrespectful, yes.
We may have to pay this innkeeper before we lose this room.
That's a good call. I'll handle that.
Tossing us the last gold from the pirate king. Now remember, that is a rare coin.
That's quite special gold.
And that's not just a regular gold coin. I think you pay more money selling that coin. Let me explain that to me.
Sure. Yeah, I'll definitely go down there and do that. I'll be right back. I head down. How much is
So,
keeping the room for the next 4 days?
well, good question. As you begin to go down the steps, coming up the steps, you can actually see the innkeeper, Mr. Navet. He's coming up with a tray of porridges and drinks for breakfast and such. And Navet goes, "Oh well, oh, pardon me, little man. I was just coming through with breakfast for you all. Compliments of my wife."
Oh, well, thank you very much. I was actually coming to speak with you about continuing our lease of these rooms for the next several days. I understand there's going to be an influx of a great number of people.
I would imagine, but again, we promised these rooms to you all through the week, and so you need not worry. Of course, we wouldn't kick you out, especially given the service that you've done for us. Um, but in the event that, of course, special circumstances arose, the we may request one of the rooms be reserved back to us, just because, well, uh, we're not so sure, but occasionally a very special guest would come to stay with us, although he could likely stay elsewhere.
Ooh, sounds very fascinating. And I don't suppose it's Captain de la Muerte. night, he would say.
Oh no, 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 no. Capitan Di La Muerte leaves after he goes about whatever his business is. He's stopped here before in the past, but no, that is not the visitor that I refer to. Um, we sometimes are favored by the patronage of the Viceroy, and so when he comes, we usually clear out a room for him.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for that explanation.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, that said, no need for payment yet, and if you wish to continue using the rooms after this, we'll work that out at that point. But I appreciate it, and again, we appreciate you all and the service you've done for us. So thank you again.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Very well. And Mr. Navet goes back down the steps.
I come back. Pardon? Sorry about that. I had a piece of very hot porridge. So apparently we might be having to give up one of our rooms at some point to a gentleman known as the Viceroy.
Oh, and Gabriel laughs and says that he's not the Viceroy. He is titled as a Viceroy, but as laughable.
What is it? Is it because no one respects him, or because he's not actually a Viceroy and he's like a crazy person?
So a Viceroy would be what you would refer to Viray as in your common tongue from the Kingsland. Uh, to use the title Viceroy instead of Viray is uh, a bit of an insult to my people. And typically the Viray are given their ancestral heritage as is right by the line of succession, but this quote unquote viceroy did not receive the title that way.
That's disappointing. He draws his porridge. I've already eaten it, probably.
I don't see any reason not to trust it.
Wouldn't she grow in some plants?
Oh yeah, they're right over there. There's a number of these can be turned into some potent poison.
You see that she's worked some fruit and stuff like that into the porridge, but it doesn't look like there's anything leafy in there. Maybe.
I have no problem with any other way.
Yeah, I find the porridge delicious.
Or just
Porridge, like granola, berries, and honey, and a little bit of porridge.
It's good. Oh, it does bring up the topic. Certain information has gotten around that maybe people consider us a threat. Start seeing that we are, especially some are thinking that we are getting close. They may just consider us bubblers so that they might not take any action. Insulting, but replacement then? That sounds good.
Very good. We will go to see my uncle and update him with regards to what has been transpiring. Right. So you guys finish your breakfast. Is there any other business that any of you want to take care of before leaving the King's Rest? On your way out of the King's Rest, you move through the common room downstairs, and Mr. Navet actually stops you and says, "Mr. I believe Ko, was it?
Yes,
Um,
and it's just a coat.
well, Ko. Here, my wife and I had something we wanted to ask you, but it was a bit of a discreet matter. Would you mind stepping into the kitchen very briefly?
Beats back on the bed. Yeah, Pete, can you quietly, can Virgil as quietly as his ass can be, try and listen in as best he can?
Sure. You can go ahead and I need a stealth check from you.
Alright, let's see how poorly that goes. 20. Not bad at all.
S-
The blind squirrel fight.
two or three things I'll be whispering to the two of you.
Alright. So, did anyone get any skill points when they leveled up, or is that not a thing?
So your proficiency goes up, which improves almost all of your skills that you're trained in. So almost all of your skills that you're trained in should have gone up by one automatically when you adjusted your level.
It's actually my dad. And I like that. Hey, Dios mio, and then we cut to a commercial. What else is Michael, that your character that point very spectacle arcade from the pirate and Rodrigo especially seemed to be one of my characters because they were minted like many, 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 many years ago. I forgot how long, but like those very beginning of the island. Got a lot of them. I think that the practice for going so they gave me one so I could and buy as another part. So I've got mine labeled as a captain's point separate. I will have to go do that myself. Oh yeah, I've got it. I wrote it down. Gold points. Now, how an ancient stylized version of the house Rodriguez from the Mark an ancient stylized version of house Rodrigo. So you go all the way back to the founding of the island
I plan on keeping mine for quite some time. Something of this significance shouldn't be just away.
Unless we're really thirsty.
Yes, of course, there is that. But for the most part, I would try to keep a hold of it. But you never know.
More prefer
Single move. That said, last bit of work here. One moment. Uh, some noise begins to, come from the kitchen as Mrs. Novitt is banging about pots and pans and things of that sort.
I start looking around for the next course. I wonder if she's preparing more for us.
But that said, you guys see Co rejoin you all. And then you are heading out back to the bladesmith Antonio Torres's place, if I'm not mistaken. Good deal. All right. So that said, I'll bring up the main map again, just so. And Antonio Torres. Let's see here. Okay. Right. So you guys are headed up into the stairs. If you recall correctly, the stairs are sort of the wealthier area of the city where it begins to sort of ramp up towards the arch that leads out towards the sort of the fortress of the Rodrigo family. And the bladesmith Antonio Torres's shop is located sort of centrally amongst them, maybe a little bit close to the arch. And let me see here. Where's Antonio Torres's journal entry? Yes, there it is. So you guys head back there, and the back room that you're led to by Gabriel is again, as always, a bit of a mess, as Antonio seems to be that kind of mad genius that he knows where all of his tools are. They're all out in the open, though, and they're all messed about. At least the showroom that he has sort of in the front is in better condition, but it looks like Antonio's working on a basic rapier that bears his maker's mark. Looks like he's sort of finishing it up as you know he's making quite a clatter of noise and doesn't hear you all enter initially. But then you can see that he puts it down into a bucket of water to cool as he turns back to you all and says, "Ah, so my nephew returns. Any news about the daggers?" Um, there would have only been three copies that I would have made. One would have been for my client, one would have been for myself, and then the third would have been for Alaric Goldhill, the jeweler.
And none of yours are missing.
No, I still have, and the drawing that I used to show you all what they look like is the original copy that I had made for myself. Generally, with these things, I sketch out a original for the client, and then make a copy for myself, and then copies for anyone else that is going to be a skilled laborer working with me. I'm familiar with Lockwood. He is a bit cheap to pay out for my prices, but I know that he uses several of the less skilled smiths throughout the city for weapons trade. Raul Rodrigo. Mhm. Well, again, the reason that I'm paying such a high price to you all is that I need some discretion in this. Leastwise, I don't want to gain a reputation for not being able to carry out the work. I mentioned that I'd rather not Raoul find out that the daggers are missing. Yes, no, informed him. Just because of, again, if anything, he may know something or his guards may have seen something, but they did not. At least not when I asked him. So. I I don't know. Again, I appreciate how upright and forthright you are, sir. Truly a testament to your faith and your religion. But that said, 1,000 gold is more money than I'd pay if this was some sort of, you know, issue where uh, we could involve the guard or we could do any. Like again, I don't know if I emphasize this enough, but you were not to be openly operating as agents of myself because. Mm, mhm, mm, yes. The favor that. Oh, go ahead. The favor that I hold with the Rodrigo family and several of the other more powerful houses within the city, I doubt that he would do anything. Uh, as is. Yes. No, again, reprisal versus me is not something that I'm terribly concerned about. That aside, though, again, I am very well storied and have an excellent reputation within the city, and again, that's why I wanted this handled as quietly as possible. So as best you can, given the circumstances, and I mean, in the event some sort of reputation gets around that should you what's the word? Should those that steal from the bladesmith Antonio Torres pay for it in some capacity beyond, they touch the stove and their hand gets burnt, I'm fine with that, I suppose.
Goal with us would be to try to somehow read the daggers and return it to the account and take them as unwise as possible.
Yes, possibly, indeed. Oh,
Also, there is, I don't know if it's part of the mountain, but the term fortress within a fortress is not a good thing.
mm,
His guards, his area is greatly overrun, so we're trying to find a way of confirming that is our that fact, especially because Jack claimed that there was he has a picture of Jack in his possession, and you now just clarified that there was literally no version of the diagram means that somehow he was able to get a hold of a copy.
well, well, if you're concerned about that, perhaps, in the event that rather than taking some sort of clandestine means to take them back, uh, if you want to try to negotiate a ransom from him to return the blades. Uh, Now, that being said, the maximum ransom I would be willing to pay is the amount I was paying you all, 1,000 gold, and whatever you negotiate the ransom to be is what I will be taking out of the amount that I pay you all. You'd still be paid handsomely should you be able to negotiate the ransom well enough, but that beside the point. Uh, Again, that would be only if you have no other means of recourse in this instance. I don't want to get in the habit of paying off ne'er-do-wells that think that they can abscond blades from Antonio Torres, and then I'll just pay for them back.
I mean, that's a possibility. It's good to know. I don't back so I don't value value us and we need to possibly share the information with certain quarters that he was able to get one of them.
Hmm.
Since I understand there's no real love lost between him and Raul.
Indeed.
So I don't know if he'd be willing to part with him.
Well,
Either way, I think is pretty clear about our goals in regaining these daggers.
If there's something he valued, he can get with him and we can negotiate a trade.
possible.
That's well, that is something I could be helped to as fact. We did find something is value that needed taking.
Such as his bookkeeper. So, he knows the numbers. I doubt that you have a point. I don't think that he would know anything that would be that embarrassing to Lachlan, but it's possible.
Well,
But then again, we still need to get more information. Even if we've got to rely on him Master Bladesmith, have you ever laid your eyes upon a piece of gold with this mark on it? Show him your coin.
Oh, this is rather remarkable that you've come across something such as this. This is gold, probably dating back centuries at this point. It bears the stamp of the Pirate King, so this would at least date back to before the Kingsland taking over the Isles, if not further. The cap. Oh, Capitan de la Muerta. Interesting. Interesting. I am fascinated that you somehow impressed him, especially individuals from outside the islands. Oh, bravo. Yes. No, it would be a beautiful accent. I could see that working very nicely. Yes, it would be an excellent choice to carry out such a thing so as that the stamp on the coin would not be damaged by incorporating it into the blade.
I think that these coins would give us a conversation starter for us to try to find out if the jeweler still has his copy of the drawing.
Just considering the same thing.
No, if Lockwood
My understanding is that he leaves those coins with the innkeeps when they are. I mean, he left them on the table, so they're not uncommon there.
Yeah, but he didn't show up that often. I think the bartender said he had been there at least a year.
Well, he hadn't made it into his shop. There's an awful lot of bars around here.
You can always ask Gabriel about how often they hear about a sighting.
A sighting of Capitan de la Muerta. It is, it depends on the season and where he's docked. Some cities might see him across multiple bars within the period of a fortnight. Other times it may be a year or two before a city is visited by him. It depends. There's many different tales in folklore. There's also all bars. They build up how you say this story about how they had a legendary meeting with the Capitan, or they say that their ale is preferred by the Capitan, and that's sort of their way of pushing their own rum or ale or whatever it is. There's many different thoughts as to what you should provide the Capitan for when he arrives in your bar. Usually it's pretty universal, but
So basically, while they're not unheard of,
They're not common, but they're not rare.
yes.
They're probably uncommon. Not a bad thought. I'm not sure it's going to be worth much to a man that has enough money that he can buy them from any of the innkeepers that he wanted to.
my thought was that the picture that the accountant was describing was just a record of freight description.
Well, why don't we go see if the jeweler, would be interested in taking a commission on one of these coins, and at the time finding out if he still has his copy of the print as well.
Yeah, we actually haven't spoken to him yet. We're on our way there. Maybe started following and figured out where the robbery was.
We did talk to the dwarf.
I don't remember. Was I here for that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked to the dwarf. Because he told us that, you know, he did his job and they left. And as far as he was concerned, he was done. And we asked him how often he used, you know, the courier that he used, and he said he used them all the time.
You hadn't visited Gold Hill shop though. You did speak to the courier, which was,
Oh, okay.
um,
Okay.
but
I thought I was
PK Society check on the jeweler to see if I know anything about him or have heard of him at all.
certainly you guys rolled pretty well in society last time, but you can go ahead and give it a roll. Or just general recall knowledge at the moment. What?
Nice.
Um, Again, you know more or less what was learned previously with regards to Alaric Goldhill. The Goldhill family is a very well-to-do group of dwarves. Typically speaking, they tend to favor northern trade routes and are better known around the areas of the far north, such as Xantholti and such. What would drive a Goldhill this far south? It's a little bit unusual, um, but along those lines, they are known to be excellent and cutthroat merchants. They're known to have great levels of security versus theft or just in general, just stealing from them typically is not a good idea because in the event that they find out about it, if they don't take care of it with legitimate security, the Gold Hills will likely pay someone to make sure that you don't steal from anyone again. There's particular notorious thieves over time that have been shown that that particular line of
Especially stealing from merchants.
yes.
Starting with this. Like Blades.
Indeed, and the courier that he uses was a different one than the courier that Antonio Torres uses. Alaric uses one of his nephews, but it seems like Gold Hill only employs dwarves.
And it was Torres courier that got roughed up, right?
Yes, he had picked up the package from Gold Hill's shop and gotten waylaid on the way back.
I think we should get going to the artisan before it gets too late.
Before it gets too hot.
Yes. This is almost unbearable.
Well, again, you guys get to the nicer area of the stairs over towards where Gold Hill's shop is. You can see there is a little bit of a to-do across town. Now, remember, as you go further up the stairs, you have a better vantage point of the rest of the city because there's almost like a incline, and that's where the stairs sort of get their name, is the different levels of the city and how the stairs climb up towards the fortress of the Rodrigo family. Uh, but as you get to Gold Hill shop, you can oversee most of the city, and you can see a large fleet of a couple dozen ships has arrived into the Silkside docks. And the flag they're waving looks like a Rodrigo flag, or you know, the Rodrigo crest from a distance, but it's hard to say exactly. But a lot of the ships are flying like black stylized banners and have like sort of a sinister sort of edge to them, almost what you'd expect from pirates to strike fear into their enemies or something to that effect. But you can see a lot of like some kids, are moving throughout the streets or trying to get over to the docks to see the ships come in, and you can see other folks moving down that direction. There have been a lot of ships coming into the city, as is the last couple days, but this is a very large fleet that's rather noticeable as it's coming in. So, um, that said, you make your way over to the Gold Hill shop, and again, you can see it is hot in the aisles. It is pretty, at least 70 degrees most days, usually hotter. Uh, and Gold Hill employs several dwarfs that stand out in plate mail outside of his shop for that level of security. Almost every single entrance and corner and the exits are all covered by a dwarf in full plate. And you can see that you've noticed this before. You've come by and cased Gold Hill shop to try to see where people might try to, overlook or see like how things come and go here. And looks like there's like these various different counters with jewelry and gemstones and just other things that you'd expect someone of Gold Hill standing to sell. But as someone comes into the storefront, it looks like Gold Hill himself is back behind the counter, but there's this sort of smaller, younger looking dwarf that seems to welcome anyone into the shop. And as they're welcomed into the shop, you can see that they pop a bottle of champagne for them. They pour a glass for whomever that is, and that individual sort of goes like almost handholds whomever it is as they go through perusing whatever it is that they're looking for in the shop. This you've made note of from not just this time that you've come here. Alaric may or may not have someone in the shop, but in the other instances where you case the place, you'd notice that he really does this. It seems like Alaric sells not only gems and jewelry, but an experience for the nobles of the stairs. Hmm. Oh, cool.
So I'm sort of going,
Doesn't look like he has as much security inside. Maybe not because he doesn't want people to feel uncomfortable while they're perusing or browsing, but you can see that he does have one dwarf inside that is in full plate.
are we inside or are we outside?
Oh, you're outside looking in. I need to know what your approach to the store is. Because, I mean, and to be frank, you all are dressed and look not like the clientele that Gold Hill would accept into his store.
Yeah, I'll try going in. I have my clothing with the leathers is fairly nice, so I'll see if I can.
Fairly nice.
Follow them inside.
How much money did you spend on it?
It was right
No problem. Again, unless you've spent an extraordinary amount or you have a disguise kit and you've, sort of tried to pass yourself up, um, you again look, fairly common or like a mercenary or a merchant or something to that effect. So, but what was that you were saying? I think Jim, you were saying you were approaching. He grunts and he says, "It's worth it for the pay." Uh, buddy, I don't know if you know Alaric too well, but I mean, unless the favor's pretty lucrative, he's likely gonna kick you out on your ass.
That's what I thought. I've dealt with the elderly. I appreciate your time and extra blood.
Yeah, same to you. Mm.
Well, on that note, I think, well, I can hear
I'll relate exactly what
Yes, well, since you've said that, I think I will stay outside.
Is there a back door? We can see someone that's near the door with you. You can have champagne and then a salesperson or something.
Yes, absolutely. There's a younger looking dwarf that comes to the doorway. As someone comes to the door, they're let in. And by the way, you do notice that Alaric's salesman, whoever it is, they unlock the door to allow individuals inside, and then lock it behind the individual that comes inside after that. So it seems to be a very um, trying to think of comparable levels of security. What was the movie? Was it Snatch?
It's defensive then.
Yes. So,
I'm going to go over to the door and gently tap on it.
uh, no one stops you. And you can see that they do have a client inside at the moment. And the younger dwarf holds up a finger to the client, and then he makes like a sweeping gesture towards the various different cases, and you can see that the client, who looks like it's a woman that's pretty well dressed islander. Uh, she also seems to have a bodyguard that's in. He looks well dressed, but he does have leather armor over his silken raiment. But the dwarf comes over, unlocks the door, pokes his head out, and says, "Yes."
I love this guy. I thought you would. I know we're going to get into it. My friend, I'm not trying to enter I would like, if possible, from Master Torres regarding items that we may need ask about them.
He
Wish we'd be happy to go around behind the store wall
um he wrinkles his nose at you, and you can see he's got like a pair of glasses that hang low on his nose. He pushes them back, and he says, "One moment," as he goes, "Uncle, Uncle," as he closes the door. Um, and um, you can see Alaric. He's a white-haired dwarf. Uh, fairly well dressed, although it looks like he's doing work behind the counter, so he's wearing like sort of a leather overcoat. He himself is pretty portly looking as well, even for a dwarf, and he sort of waddles his way around the counter, and he nods to his nephew. And you see Alaric come to the doorway, and he says, "Excuse me, but oh, oh." He seems to straighten up as he looks Grail up and down. And he's like, "I didn't know it was one of our kinsmen that were speaking to us. Here, I was just about to take my lunch anyway. And you see that he snaps his fingers, and a couple of the dwarves that are in full plate begin to move to not necessarily flank him exactly, but they move, to go with him. He says, "There's a cafe across the way here. I usually take my lunch at. Um, Join me for a drink and some food if you would, since you're the ones that Torres said that you might be having yourselves come by at some point to ask some questions or something to that effect. I appreciate you guys looking into this." Good, good, good. Here, and the rest of your, you can see the rest of the group either standing around or, waiting to hear back from you. And he motions, "Come, come, everyone, join me for lunch."
and I'm going to swing back and say I'm going to back to Bob. I said,
Oh, I'm totally, again, above board with this sort of thing, and living in the Isles for as long as I have now, at least the last couple of years, I'm used to it, so don't worry. As he sits down, and the two of the dwarves flank back behind him, and it seems like the cafe, like they seem to have a table specifically set aside for Alaric, and the staff seem to know him as they take down his order, and they take down. Uh, Again, they have various different like juices, coffees and teas and things of that sort, as well as it seems like to be mostly like luncheon or appetizer foods, as well as like sweets, like chocolates and things of that sort. So mostly a lot of different fare of the islands. Um, and Alaric, you can see he's taking sort of a coffee alongside just some sandwiches that he's ordering. But so um, I imagine that you probably have some questions for me, given the nature of your investigation. At least uh, Torres had mentioned about what happened to his boy. Bad business that. I don't know what I would have done. Well, actually, I do. If someone had done that to my nephew, they'd uh, they'd be learning to regret ever trying to steal from Alaric Goldhill. I can tell you that much. Yeah. Good.
On the surface, a traitor by the name of
Mm, not so familiar with him. If he's not ever involved in gems or jewelry, um, a human's a human's a human. In this, especially in these isles, the people constantly coming, going throughout the ports and such. Um, but trying to think on it. I mean, tough to say. Really tough to say. Uh, is he wealthier? Well-to-do?
well, he has, we understand he does a lot of arms and
Hmm.
seedy side and deals a lot with the
Well, the Iron Throne typically deals in more conventional goods. If I was to work with an armor smith or a weaponsmith, it would typically be either more ceremonial or something that's going to be enchanted. Might be a little bit out of his pay grade. But yeah, I can't say that I've ever had any sort of dealings with this individual you're referring to, Lockwood, I think it was. Well, there's a couple different. I mean, really, and I don't know how long you've been around the Isles, cousin, but the thing about the Isles is that as far as the laws go, they are enforced only insofar as the various different rulers in power can enforce them or are willing to enforce them. So you see all the security that I have around my shop there. Particularly in the event that you're not associated with any of the ruling families and such. You'll find that you're left to your own devices in a lot of different ways. So, unsurprising, I'd say, And it's one of those reasons why these sorts of things, when they happen, uh, you know, in order to be a well-to-do trader within a city, you need to be able to finance your own guard or your own mercenaries, because otherwise you'll find yourself eaten alive within Porta del Sol. But
Also, I've also heard that if anyone there, shall we say, abscond or steal anything from you, that you would have to take steps yourself to ensure that they realize that was a very bad idea.
yes, the last person that stole from me, well, let's just say that they're not very mobile anymore.
I read your pictures of the daggers. He had one for himself, one,
Mhm.
and then one
Yes,
still had your copy.
yes, I still have it filed away inside.
Part of our information is that I ran a picture of the dagger across one of the desks in the master file.
You can see that he's wearing a locket around his neck that has like sort of an ornate, it is a little bit larger than a normal locket. And you can see that he opens it up, and inside is a small key. He takes the key and hands it to one of his men and says, "Here, just so that we can confirm with our own eyes, can you go, it's in the chest to the right of my workstation. You'll find it inside of there. Jade handle, uh, diamond gemstones, some ruby filigree. That should be what it looks like. You should. It's hard to miss. Um,
I mean, obviously, someone invested in the ability to do so. You know, there's various things that have connections to
mm,
Miss Bryant. Lord Master Torres has found his guy. Lord Bryant still has his boots, so we are not obviously going to make too much of a issue and find out that he still has his guy.
uh, Gold Hill's man comes back, and he's got the drawing folded in four. He unfolds it, and you can see that it's virtually the same drawing that you were shown at Torres's place.
You'll know that definitely two of these are all yours. Now it's Raul's copy still with him, or is he my friends? Does anyone else have a question for? Oh no, I don't intrude comes upon his hospitality longer than necessary.
I do actually. And my apologies if this has already been answered or the information has been discussed. Um, Master Goldhill, a man of your experience and age, I believe, would have the wisdom to answer this question truthfully. Is there anyone here who dislikes you enough and has the means to go against two houses?
Uh, Good question. There's a lot of people that dislike me, and I'll tell you why. It's because I worked my way into this city. I moved my way up through the echelons to get the reputation that I have, and I do it with my own people, and I pay my own people to come in and take care of my business and make sure that they're taken care of. A lot of folks throughout the Isles don't particularly care for that, and the fact that I've taken a cut of their business and managed to do it better than they could. Um, Plus, there's a ton of various different thieving entities or pirates, smugglers, whatever they call themselves and such, all throughout the Isles. La Rosa Negra was one of the ones that I was familiar with. I've heard of them before. They're not unknown to me. The Gardunya as well, a few others. Those are the two that mostly operate throughout the city, but there's a smattering of any number of the different uh, guilds all throughout the Isles.
And no specific person who would, and I don't mean to have like an organization, I mean literally, where I would know if it's staffing down the street sort of deal. But if not, then you are a very astute and good businessman to have as many enemies at your beck and so close.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch of jewelers and goldsmiths throughout the city that probably would like to see me taken down a notch or two. I mean, I could give you a list, but frankly, I don't think that any of them would be bold enough to do something like this. And really, it doesn't hurt my reputation any. I delivered the daggers to his courier as needed.
Fair point. Thank you.
Yeah, that would sound about right. Really, it may not have even been something about damaging reputation. The blades were excellently put together, and I believe that Torres was going to enchant them, so they'd be quite valuable. Although the enchantment had not been completed yet, as I needed to do the jewelry work first. But you know, that's certainly interesting. I mean, and again, I don't know too much about the history of these isles because I've only been here, well, not too long a time, especially by our kin. But the idea that I've generally gotten of the Rodrigo family is nearly every single one of them can handle a blade.
Oh, I didn't say he couldn't. I just said he probably doesn't.
Ugh, I'm not too familiar with Raul other than having had this weapon commissioned by Torres and assisting him. Mm. Yes, well, hopefully you succeed. That work was far too beautiful to be in the hands of, well, any of those scumbags throughout the old town. I mean, frankly, I'd like to see them retrieved as well, but I'm not willing to pay for it.
Oh, I understand that.
Very good.
But offer the blessing of trust.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, I want to see Carmen. I definitely want to see Carmen. We could have a purpose, but I just thought that, like, when they asked about that picture to, she should be able to locate it without causing any kind of issue with Rodriguez. And I try to steal pictures of things and ask. So a lot more to ask instead of bothering. I get the impression she knows more than she's letting us know. Oh, I guarantee it right now. I just need to touch my just it's like an itch I can't scratch under my armor that just all my pictures are. And if it's not with Lord Rodrigo, that's telling in itself because it may be someone closer to Lord Rodrigo's problems that they were able to get a copy of that picture.
let's go. I'm anxious to move all these. I can tell you're anxious to go see Barb. Yes. I mean, I have things to share.
I have such wondrous things to show you. As you guys are headed out, there is a procession coming up the stairs of just various individuals of distinction that are up on horseback, and they are flying a sort of war banner with them. Again, it looks like it's a variation of the Rodrigo banner, but it's on black. And many of the men on horseback, um, again, none of them are wearing like plate or any appreciable metal armor, but they're wearing like black leathers and tabards that indicate something associated with the Rodrigo house. There's one individual of he looks like he's dressed, for lack of a better term, expensively. He's in mostly black silks and leathers himself, and he has sort of black slick back hair. His horse is adorned. It looks like in like most of the saddle and the reins and stirrup are all like sort of uh, not dripping in gold, but they're gold at least plated, if not completely made of gold. Uh, but this entire procession looks like it's made up of less than 50 individuals in total, but still a good number. You can see that some wagons are coming up the rear, as well as, some people are on foot walking with them, look like sailors or other individuals. But at least the folks that are in the front of this procession that are going up the stairs are ones that look like they're well dressed, well-to-do, and of note of some sort.
Is Gabriel still with us?
Yes, he is still with you.
Gabriel, what are these? The Dark Rodrigos?
The Dark Rodrigos. No, no. Well, maybe you're not so far from it, I suppose. So that there, and he points to the man that's dressed rather nicely, uh, and I'll add him to all players' journals, is the younger brother of Mateo Rodrigo. His name is Esteban. He is one of the Virrey, and he rules over Isla de Lucha, one of the sun-kissed isles that has more of a notorious reputation.
Society on him.
Sure. With the 12, you don't know too much more than what is conveyed to you by Gabriel, but he says the Isle is notorious because they operate almost as a haven for smugglers, pirates, and slave traders. As long as they pay Esteban, he does not care. He constantly has issues with the Kingsland because of this, but his brother sort of smooths it over, I guess.
Could I try a society with that little
Absolutely.
brush kind of sparked my yeah, I gotta remember to use it myself.
24. All right. A few other things of note, and I'll just list them out loud. Is that, let me see here. So, there has been scandal in the Rodrigo family in the past only because whereas Mateo has continued the tradition of bending the knee and keeping the peace between the Kingsland and himself, some of his uncles or his brothers or his nephews, some of the various Virrey have often been violently opposed to the Kingsland. Esteban has been one of the Virrey, his brother, that has been on the cusp of violence with the Kingsland, but not quite there. Their other brother, Sabian Rodrigo, actually fostered a rebellion, and it was thought that Esteban helped him with the rebellion. But Sabian was the one that ended up taking it on his shoulders, the responsibility for the rebellion. And the Kingsland put it down violently and executed Sabian and his children. Uh, and like as you may be regurgitating some of this, Gabriel would step in and say, "This is actually you heard me talking of the Viceroy earlier. This is where after the Kingsland executed Sabian, they actually appointed a Vire instead of allowing one to be chosen from his line, and that was because one, they executed him and all of his line, and two, that island was particularly difficult for the Kingsland to deal with, so they wanted to make sure to install a quote-unquote viceroy that they could trust." But yes, Esteban is notably, whereas a lot of the people in the Sunkissed Isles are opposed to the Kingsland, but rather at least like they'll get along to get along. Esteban has been known to really push the limits, as he does not care for any of the laws of the Kingsland and does not enforce them on his isle.
All right. Yeah, I can remember that. He's far enough away. Far enough away.
Mhm. Gabriel continues, and that is right. The Margrave largely concentrates most of his forces here at the seat of the Rodrigo power. The second largest concentration would actually be with the Viceroy, and that would be, they renamed the isle that Sabian ruled over after they took over. They named it, and he spits on the ground, the Isla del Rey, which is the Isle of the King. Why Rodrigo would have accepted such a title and done such a thing is beyond me.
The Viceroy is a Rodrigo?
Elizar Rodrigo is a very complex individual. He is one of the children of Mateo, but he went to study in the Kingsland under the War Wizards. He apparently moved up amongst the ranks, and he seems to be more a child of the Kingsland nowadays than a child of the Pirate King, or ancestor, or successor, I should say. Elizar Rodrigo. I'll add him to your journals as well.
I'd like to meet this one.
Elizar, I would like to meet him as well, if only to punch him in his face.
Wow. Good to know.
But you likely will see him in the next few days, unless he does not come for the funeral, which I would not be surprised, given how disrespectful Elizar is to our traditions, as is. This would likely be one of the few times that I think Esteban and Elizar will be within striking distance of each other as well. It should be interesting. It is. But here, where were we? We were headed back to the brothel? Very well. So, you guys continue your way across town, having seen the procession of Esteban Rodrigo seemingly headed through the arch up towards Mateo's fortress. and you make your way to the Forbidden Coast, which is the brothel. Again, it's closed this time of day, but just like you did last time, you knock on the door, you request the guards to do so, and Carmen comes out to meet you all. She is she's wearing a looks like some sort of uh, covering that you would wear over your dancer's clothing, so sort of one to not show off your dancer's garb, but also like maybe there would be like a surprise reveal or something like that that she wouldn't want to show off before a performance. So yes, the dressing gown, absolutely. So Carmen meets you in her hair is not made up yet, nor is she adorned with very much jewelry, but she's out in a dressing gown. And the Crimson Orchid says to you all, so how is your investigation going? The guards told me that you wanted a word.
Bonita. Oh man.
Hmm.
No, our investigation is going beautifully.
Beautifully. Good. This is excellent. So have you found them yet, or have you found the perpetrator? I will, and she invites you all in. You can see that they're getting the first floor, ready for the evening. They're cleaning up everything from the previous day, and just going about setting out new candles and uh, just everything they could go about, keeping the place running. And from there, what you can see is that she goes upstairs and she then comes back down uh, and after a few minutes of you guys waiting, and she says, "So the in actuality, it is missing." Interesting. Um, while you discuss this amongst yourselves for a moment, I need to take Jasper out real quick, so I will be right back.
There's no chance Locke with Rodrigo.
Yes, I think that would be contrary to his interest.
Let's say, for instance, he commissioned those daggers for 10,000 gold, and someone close to him cooked up a scheme with Locke to steal them for 5,000. Lord Rodrigo is someone that would basically look at a master tradesman like decide that, I'm going
spitballing ideas here, but we have to find the link between Rodrigo's sketch of the daggers and how that got into.
I also have that suspicion.
However, all Carmen had to do was come down here and say, no, the diagram is we have no way of sourcing it to show it. All you can do is simply say, when we had our meeting with Rodrigo, who was in the room? Yes, but it was us, Rodrigo, and
There was his, yes, the other fellow that was there attending to him. Don't recall his name, or if he gave it.
isn't there a bartender that seems to go from here to another bar or something? I thought there was a bartender that we were drinking with, and then he ended his shift and then showed up at this bar as well.
oh, it's wrong.
Am I imagining that? You guys not remember that?
I don't remember that. That doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah, and Mike's character had, made small talk with the guy.
Oh, that was between the other bars.
I've returned.
I thought he was teamed up with the bartender. There was a guy sitting at the bar. There was the bartender, and I thought when we left that bar, they came over to start their shift here as well. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Get some clarification. Grab a water.
Okay. What was the question? No, there wasn't. There was a troubadour, if you recall correctly. He was the one that spoke for Rodrigo at certain points in time, and he was at the bar. He spoke to the other bard that was there, actually. The two of them left when Capitan de la Muerte was there. But yes, there was a troubadour. And actually, looking back on it, you've seen that troubadour around a bit around town for whatever reason.
I mean, Kane's almost unwilling to have sex with anyone at this point.
I'm still a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone here that's not a doppelganger?
Sorry, but that's our last campaign.
I like that. Is there anyone that's not a doppelganger?
Everyone just slowly slinks off.
Remember, we went to a bar to investigate
Mm-hmm.
where the courier for Torres would go and drink.
Yes.
Trying to see if he had any gambling debts or whatever, and we ran into a guy that had like a Kingsland accent or something like that, or no, it wasn't a Kingsland accent.
This was when you were out. So you went to the Forbidden Coast, but you weren't able to actually go inside yet until after nightfall. However, there were some other bars and establishments that were open in the same sort of courtyard area. Uh, and one, there was a boy with a Kingsland accent that was chatting it up with one of the bartenders, the same bartender that would end up bartending at the Forbidden Coast later that evening. The Yes, yes.
I remember that now.
So I just want to make sure that we're considering them, that they're kind of when there's smoke, there's fire. They're kind of in and around this.
Mm-hmm.
Still standing there.
Um, Myself, um, some of the other staff of the Forbidden Coast. I mean, his office upstairs, we have it cleaned. I go in and out. So do several other members of the several bartenders and other dancers and such. Um, I mean, who would have access to it unattended? Smaller list, but it would still be along the lines of myself or I could come up with a couple names for you. Yes. No, I agree. And investigating into that would be a matter of import, considering that that means that we have someone on staff that is likely absconded with it.
To make a list of the most likely person to be corruptible by Lockwood, or possibly to have fallen into debt with, La Rosa Negra. Would that list be an even smaller?
My dear Kane, sweet, sweet Kane, as she sort of brushes your hair aside.
Yes, maybe.
Ah, you you speak of these things like you know terribly much about them. However, I won't say that Lockwood's not associated with that organization, but uh, there are many others that are associated with them, and I don't know if you realized this, but it very well could be that those surrounding you, as she's telling you this in the middle of the Forbidden Coast, those surrounding you might be members as well.
It seemed to roll pretty deep over at Lockwood's place. Almost fought half the guards this.
Well,
I think I called one spell.
that would one be ill-advised, and two, just because he's associated with the same organization doesn't mean that everyone plays nicely with each other.
So you're saying there's a chance?
No.
I just feel my head. Kane puts his arms across his chest. He's feeling really proud of how he handled that.
Dick.
And for some reason, just so you guys have some insight into my, I guess, character, when Kane thought about going to meet Carmen, for some reason, Maroon 5, like, Moves Like Jagger, started playing in my head.
Oh man.
Narrow the list down of those to look at.
Great. I'm just picturing you in a blue tuxedo.
Well, if we can get a short list from Carmen, and we can get a stakeout, maybe see what other gambling like establishments this guy may or may not, frequent. Problem is, there's no way to tell how long we have to wait for it, even if that person is back to that area. They may not want to keep everything quiet, so there might be multiple cutouts. I mean, how would we find out if like a large debt was recently forgiven or repaid? You know what I mean?
We'd have to probably speak to someone who's within the social like whisper network.
Or if anybody was unusually spreading money around.
Yet all that takes time.
A lot of time plus it doesn't mean, some of them just simply win that gamble. Next thing you know, we're chasing along 10 Right. Pete, do you intentionally set out to make these so puzzling, or do we make it puzzling?
That's gonna be yes. That's gonna be yes.
So I go with the tried and true. I've got a number of pieces of evidence, and they're provided to you guys. And if you ask the right questions, you may get the right answers. But also, in the event that you guys typically roll a skill check or use something else to advance the skill challenge, then I volunteer information that you may have just come across as part of the skill challenge.
Saw at the other bar and saw here in this area, don't seem to go around a whole lot.
The troubadour. Well, that was one of the individuals that uh, I thought could be possibly involved with the situation. He himself, he's come into Raoul's good graces in the last few years, but his name is Grayscale. He's a bard of some small skill, or perhaps no small skill, I should say. He's quite good at what he does, but he seems to get Raoul, and he and Raoul have a relationship that I'm sorry to say that almost no one else do. He seems to be able to know what Raoul's thinking.
That's troubling. We saw him in a couple of places, including, now was he entertaining at Blackwood's bar? Was he one of the bars that was entertaining, or was he just the troubadour that was in there?
He wasn't entertaining. He actually walked in and was drinking at the bar while you guys were there.
He has he's connected with Raoul, and we saw him in Blackwood's.
So the reason that this is unsurprising for me is that Grayscale may have been there for the same purpose that you all were. Whereas I continue to answer your questions after your meeting with Raoul. If you recall correctly, Raoul said that he'll take care of it himself, and he may have sent Grayscale to look into the matter. I would suspect that given the information that you gave Raoul, that he would have thought the same as I, that Adlat had something to do with this, and that he needs to look into it. Grayscale's rather good at these sorts of things, and can be utilized for various different purposes by Raoul. Of course, Adlat would know who Grayscale is, and also most others in the organization most likely would as well. So wouldn't be too far off. I mean, technically speaking, Raoul and Adlat, as they might be quote unquote competitors, they both sort of work for the same team, so to speak.
Miss Carmen, may I ask you a quick question?
Certainly.
The drawing that was discovered to be missing, was that an artist's rendition, or is that more of a schematic?
Uh,
It's one of the drawings that Torres made.
you would
Yes, but
you would know that from Torres's description. Carmen actually does not know. But
my apologies. Then what was the sorry, I have to recall it spelling.
yeah, no, it would be pretty much the artist rendering, but also it would be the notes as far as what goes into the blade and such. It would essentially be the original copy that Torres made for the outlining of the blade, and then he would have made a copy for himself and a copy for Alaric Goldhill.
Did he ever give us kind of like in-depth information? Like, I even marked down where the arcane etchings would go.
The everything would have been outlined in the schematic so that he would the buyer would know what they would be getting.
Oh, cool, thank you.
Not necessarily everything, like so that another Smith could do it, but most of the information.
Did we share with Carmen yet that we did see the other schematic in the hands of, or at least we have evidence that the other schematic is in Lachlan's hands?
Yes, we just did. We did that when we first started talking.
Interesting.
Also, we can confirm this since she never saw it. She probably is not the one that took it, or she lied.
Grayscale is one of the ones on the short list that could have access to it. At the same time, we may be seeing him around because Raul asked him to look into, not asked, but suggested, told, whatever, that Grayscale should take a look at it from his own standpoint. So he's either a potential source of how the picture got away, or he's doing the same thing we are.
Or he's tracking us because he thinks that Raul would want that.
But we don't know if we're seeing him around a lot. We just need to keep our eyes open a bit more to see if he does show up. I mean, my feeling, if I could be completely wrong, is that he's going to try to find the daggers himself. We're not going to see him around. He's going to be us looking at black. If we see him near us alive, then he may be tracking us to see how close we're getting to him. Either because he wants to find it himself, or because he was somehow responsible as the one who took the drawing and gave it to Lachlan.
Okay, so I have a question. Are we at this point going under the assumption that Lachlan actually has the daggers, and we are just trying to figure out how to get them, or are we still trying to decide if he has them?
I'm under the assumption that he has them. And he's either
but
moving them to sell them, or he's holding them for some other reason.
I'm with that same assumption. I'm just trying to see if there's any way we can prove it. I mean, obviously, the best way to do it would be to somehow sneak into his residence and look around and see if we can find him. With the guards he has, that looks like that's not going to be a
No, his residence is very well guarded.
Right.
He is less guarded than his residence.
Well, I think that what is also quite possible is that he's going to use this for some sort of ritualistic ceremony. That because if he was going to use it as some kind of smear campaign, he would have broadcast it all over the city, and then with his connections, certainly could have done it already.
So I trying to impress a certain group. If he's trying, as Carmen said, there's factions within the Rosa Negro, he may just be certain. He's not going to want to broadcast because he sure as hell doesn't want to piss off Raul. Not openly.
I think that what I'm getting at here is that such a device, if he were to be using it, or if he wanted to keep it to lord over Rodrigo's head, he would be keeping it either on his person or in a very secure location within his estate.
Right. I agree with that.
Just wondering, would it be easier just to find an occasion to have a clandestine conversation with the man in question? So you can give some extra information? Force him to give up information. He has less guards around him most of the time than are at his domicile. If we arrange the encounters so that our identities are somewhat unknown, we are new in town anyways. Yes, but I'm sure he goes other places as well. We may just have to
comes
follow
here
him for a
nightly.
while.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, really. I mean, we could stake out this location here for when he returns.
That's true. We can see it here originally.
Right, I was going to say, the first place that we found him was not at his own bar or own brothel.
That's very true. Now, the person that he's accompanied with looked like a very capable individual.
True, but that's one capable individual versus a domicile that is protected by multiple guards.
I'm simply saying that it's a possibility. I'll have to pray on this. I don't know if I can be part of anything.
He is a thief.
Yes, let's not get confused here. This isn't exactly a pillar of society that we're discussing. He's quite the opposite.
Whether he's
He is connected.
whether he's a thief or not, and whether repercussions may happen afterwards or not, torture is something that I don't believe by God.
Oh, I was not necessarily suggesting torture. I was threatening torture.
Right. I can be very persuasive without laying a hand on it.
Right. If he just thinks that his life is going to be tortured, he doesn't give these up.
It is a possibility. It makes me feel.
If he'd like, I could go up to him and ask him if he has the daggers, and we can see how he reacts.
How would Carbon like us to proceed?
Well, we can ask Carmen how often does Blackman show up.
Get advance notice.
She chimes in, if you're still at her place, that, well, one is that he shows up a couple times a week, and typically it's either to have a brief conversation or drop something off for Rodrigo, but doesn't usually give advance notice. So he could show up tonight, he may not, depends on circumstance. As far as how I'd like you to proceed, again, I appreciate you all looking into this and perhaps resolving this issue for Lord Rodrigo, but at the same point in time, uh, I just wish you well in your investigation. I don't have any I mean, would I like to see Raoul get his property in the end? Yes. Do I particularly care about a pair of daggers? I mean, boys and their toys. I really don't particularly think it's that important. He may think otherwise, but that's between him and Adlet, I suppose.
It does seem odd that Adlai would show up here to make deliveries.
Well, I did mention, again, I'm not going to go too far into the weeds with all this, uh, gentlemen, but Adlad and Raoul do have business together, despite some issues between the two of them.
Purchase the daggers that we have been told are in his possession and see how he reacts.
Does he know that we're working with Roll?
No, not well. We have not done anything overt. Could he have been keeping an eye on what's going on around here? Yes. We're unusual. First off, we're out of here. We're not from here. We've been asking a lot of questions.
Absolutely. Somebody that we have spoken to may be one of the people that got him the dagger in the first place.
And we're definitely aware that you had a meeting with Rowan.
Right.
Well, no,
But it's also possible that
he does here. I mean, put it this way, if we're going to somehow address him directly, that's a line we can't go back from. Once that's done, it's going to be very obvious that we're interested in the daggers, and it's not going to be hard for them to find out why we're interested in the daggers.
True. I'm just saying that at this point, if we are working under the assumption that he has them, our options are to try and steal them from a guarded place, convince him to give them to us, or get more information by seeing if he's willing to talk about them and or sell them, even if we don't actually pay for them.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just simply saying that it is a line that once we cross that, it's going to be very obvious to him that we're heavily involved. That's okay. It's just something we got to be aware of. And he has a lot of powerful connections that we don't have any.
True.
So I mean, I'm not directly opposed to this at all, but and quite honestly, if I had a better idea, I'd be sharing it. We've been making small headway every time with our investigators, finding a bit more out.
Right.
I'm all for confronting the dark alley and giving them the choice to speak.
Yes, I think that's kind of where we're ending up at this point.
I think we're talking ourselves into this. I mean, you're not, first off, you're not going to confront him alone in the dark alley. He's going to have at least the person that was with him. He saw him in the bar room.
Yeah.
He was his bodyguard. So, you know he's going to take exception, and it's quite probable one or more of us are going to end up in the dust trying to put our intestines back in. Because I don't think ADMAC would hire a single person with knives up there. I'm saying if you're going to take this tag, it's going to end violently. And
So,
some of us may not come back from it.
so what if that is a possible conclusion, which I agree with you it is. We happen to know that the innkeeper his wife has a bunch of herbs and so forth and so on. Perhaps she could make some sort of concoction that would knock both of them out.
Carmen speaks up, and she'd mentioned this previously. Ciro does not drink or eat, not at least in my estimation, while he's working for Adlat. He just keeps that metal mask in front of his face the entire time. I've never actually seen him consume anything.
No, I was more thinking of a gas or something
that could work.
Would just sort of render them either unconscious or sort of even the playing field where you can just try and get the thief away from his bodyguard.
He's one guy. How bad can he be?
Famous last words, my friend.
Wow. He can be bad enough that he can kill all of us. No idea. We can't live in free. It's not fear. It's called income. We have to think through all the options and come up with a very good plan. Because first off, we're going to give one try.
Yes, which is why I was listing some of the resources that we may have outside of our own.
No, I understand that. I was talking mainly to Kane. We're going to get one try at this. And the other thing that is critical is we cannot use any type of embarrassment or publicity that may get back to the
Yes, well, I would suggest starting by no longer saying his name with people.
What's your name? What's that stand for?
Now, we can get a society on his guy that his bodyguard that's hanging out with him. If I've heard of this name.
Let me double check something really quick. Go ahead and make a roll while I check.
Yeah, it doesn't buy any
Ciro, intellect devourer assassin, level 20.
So yeah, you can use recall knowledge about local history, important personalities, and such. You haven't heard too much about Ciro with society. He doesn't have like a surname that's particularly notable. nor is he like a legendary individual himself. So, or a particularly well-known individual throughout the Isles. So, uh, you couldn't say you hadn't heard of him.
And I really can't think of anything that distinguishes his bodyguard. So I would say that if he were the next best thing, going, that we probably would have heard more about him. So I say we go for the guys, take hold of this rapscallion and see what information we can glean.
All right.
Is there anything of note with the troubadour Pete? If I have had any interactions, knowing stuff about him?
A few things. You actually know that he is actually a performer of some small amount of renown throughout Porta del Sol. He himself had made a reputation just being able to. He's an elven troubadour as well. That is of particular note because typically those amongst the Sun-Kissed Isles prefer performers of their own kind. And they typically perform with more passion and more fervor with regards to numbers about the Isles. But he, in particular, seems to have taken to their style very well. And as a result, he caught the eye of Raul Rodrigo. And Raul is known for having multiple different companions over the years. But currently speaking, Carmen Orqueda, the Crimson Orchid, and Graveskull the Troubadour are two of his most trusted consorts. That is pretty well of note, at least over the past couple of years. Um, but outside of what like society unfortunately wouldn't tell you anything unless it was like an Al Capone style like criminal or something like that. It would mostly tell you stuff that about societal structure or someone that's famous amongst the culture, and you mostly know that he is a very good bard. And good enough that you've actually heard of him, and that he may have traveled outside of the Sun-Kissed Isles and perhaps gotten a reputation in other places and such. That's his stage name. You don't actually know what his real name is, even with a natural 20.
Well, that's how I play what information that So that's what I know about the troubadour. I still don't know the bugger's name, which would probably jog my memory a bit more if I knew what his real name was. But that's all I have on the troubadour.
And we made it to the gambling house, right, or no?
You're at the Forbidden Coast. Currently, it's still midday, and there's people cleaning and setting things up. Carmen's taken some time out of setup to speak to you all and sort of talk you through the situation.
I wasn't aware the Forbidden Coast was a gambling club. I thought the Forbidden Coast was
Da-
a bar
More of a dance hall.
area.
There's gambling that is done at the tables downstairs. Largely during performances, you probably wouldn't want to gamble just because dancers use the tables at times. But on the second floor, there's a variety of tables for noblemen, and you could see that some of them were playing cards and doing other things up there. It is more of a dance hall than a gambling den, but gambling is under Raoul's sphere of influence. So he's got, between brothels and gambling halls and a combination of the two around here, in most of the places you could probably find a good game of whatever. Carmen says, "Gentlemen, uh, it seems like you have quite the issue to plot or plan out amongst you all, and I have business to handle here, and I have to get ready for a performance this evening. So I don't mind answering your questions. Please make these the last few." I think he's a sickly individual at the best of times. He's prone to illness and such. Um, Mainly why he has to have such a capable bodyguard around such a hero. Um, but he's frequents many of the different businesses in the area around him. I think that if you're looking for some place that he takes lunch or dinner at, I would think that his own inn or his own residence would probably be those. But he comes here, and he sometimes frequents the other brothels about this place, mainly for drinks. He doesn't typically partake. I've not seen lust as one of the things that motivates Adlat, so he tends to keep a very critical mind about his person at all times. You're welcome, and good luck to you. With that, you're sort of pushed out the door of the Forbidden Coast. Wrong bard, but you know there were two bards in the end.
Most people don't like Mike.
No, the bard that was playing at his establishment was disliking of you because you requested a song from the Kingsland. Raoul's troubadour Grayscale appeared and was just drinking at the bar.
Let's go ahead and see if we can fascinated by this Grayscale. He's not.
We can go. Well, let's just go bar hopping until we find him.
Yes, he's got to be a map somewhere.
Sure.
Gentlemen, may I ask one of your questions? Ask one of your questions.
It's so odd, and well, that was Gendry, the child, not Grayscale. Grayscale, again, different bars. You ran into Gendry while you were waiting to go into the Forbidden. But that said, um, so you head back to Adlat's bar, and you don't find him inside. uh, you're going about the areas and such, and maybe you have a few drinks there, a few drinks there. Again, bar hopping. I think some of you suggested bar hopping only because you were getting tired of the conversation and wanted to have a drink or two while the other ones tried to word it out. I'm not 100% on that, but either way, you do manage to get in some drinks as you go from place to place, and it's almost like he bumps into you and not the other way around. As you wander out of one of the establishments, and playing outside very softly is Grayscale, which, like flashing back, he was there when you guys arrived in the city. He was playing outside on the docks. You ran into him at Raoul's place. You ran into him at Adlet's place, and now you just run into him randomly here.
If we've had a couple of drinks, then definitely like coming out of the bar a little like sloshed around at 2 p.m.
Mm.
We've been looking for you.
He sort of turns his glance up from his playing, and then he slowly brings it to a stop as he just sort of strums lightly, and then boom, he ends the song. And he says, "Oh, you were looking for me?"
Yeah, actually, we've noticed you've been around us a lot. We've been around you. We've seen you perform, and then Virgil just points at everybody else because he doesn't know what he's supposed to ask, and he's had like 2 beers. Probably points to Cow because that's who he usually points at.
It's almost like you wish to somehow think you're going to instead of now that have acquired our own person bar to create
Interesting.
Well, he could sing about, our encounter with the
I suppose that I could, but I didn't stick around long enough to really see what happened there. I'm glad that you all survived.
Wait, these are the questions we were talking about asking him.
where the hell is Virgil?
Yeah,
Sit down.
I have been setting. No,
So,
Great scale. Tell us about the daggers.
tell you about the daggers. They're a pair of matching blades that Raul Rodrigo had commissioned by Antonio Torres that were sent off to be bedecked in jewels and perhaps more precious metals as well to Alaric Goldhill. On the send back to Torres after that was completed, his courier was waylaid, and then the blades presumably fell into hands of someone associated with um, what's the name of that organization? And I know it's the Black Rose. Yes, yes. La Rosa Negra, indeed. And so Torres interested in retrieving them so that he could return or at least fulfill his contract with Raul Rodrigo. Presumably hired all of you, who then came to Rodrigo to inquire as to who would be interested or what enemies he would have or anything of that sort. Then Raoul, wanting me to look into it now that he knew that the daggers were missing, sent me out into Lockwind's territory to try to see if I couldn't scare up any details as far as what happened with them, while you all have continued your own investigation independent of mine. Does that sound about right?
That sounds exactly what was happening, actually.
But see, here's where you are third.
Hmm.
Independent of ours. How can your investigation be independent if I trip over you like you're my shadow?
Well,
Where we go, are you so out of luck with your own investigation you now rely on us?
no, frankly, you all are an excellent, not deterrent, but what's the word? Distraction, for my own investigation. So, I've managed to at least, peruse and find some of the details about the individuals that he hired to perform the heist. Some of them were the self-same individuals that were at the bar the other day. I did have to, what's the word? Approach them with regards to a heist that I was interested in, but I needed some credentials first to make sure that I could, know that they were serious and actually able to conduct various different bits of business. And they hinted that they had pulled something off recently. It didn't take a genius to figure out 1 and 1 equals 2, although I had to do some higher math before getting to that point.
Virgil looks up at Kane, because I guess Kane is still standing and Virgil's sitting on the floor. Are those the guys you tried to start a fight with?
Us.
You tried to start a fight with those guys.
Some of those individuals were involved with the heist as well, yes.
Are those individuals still able to breathe air?
Yes.
Or do you?
I don't do that manner of dirty work.
Well, a question for you, and I do appreciate the information that you're sharing with us now, but I have to ask, why would you bother sharing it with us if you have all these information? What is it that we could possibly benefit you with?
Good question.
I think we're the ones that do the dirty work he doesn't do.
I mean, yes, we are looking to be useful while we are there. So if there's something that we can possibly advance your investigation along and take action,
It's also expected that possibly made enough witnesses of ourselves that someone may be trying to remove us, and he must at least be there to see the tracks without risking himself.
Yeah,
But you know what these daggers look like that you're searching.
I saw the drawing that Roll had commissioned.
Well, the drawing that's back at Raoul's.
I presume it's still there.
insight check. I don't.
All right, that's a perception check.
Oh God, is that?
I believe so.
Let's see. 17. Is there like? Oh, that's probably a negative because I'm tempting.
The action is called Sense Motive, and okay, so yes, it is. GM attempts a single secret perception check for you and compares the result to a deception DC of the creature.
Oh,
So,
dude, roll it. I love it.
so that said, what's your bonus, by the way, for perception?
That is 87. 8.
Let me see here. Checking.
I want to know if I got a 1. That'd be hilarious.
Said, I have an idea.
Yep, so I whispered you.
the game, all of them. How many you get?
Everyone uses all of them every time.
And that response is all that you really get on that. But yes, it is a good question as to whether or not I'd share that information with you, and I don't disagree that it may seem odd to you, but at the same point in time, again, Raul only sent me to check into these matters, not to do anything about it.
It's interesting you mentioned about picture of daggers which help your investigation that Master Lockwood has Raoul's picture. So there is a viper very close to Raoul's chest.
Huh. How interesting.
And it appears, what we understand, you would know better than I. Well, actually, I'll ask you this question. Actually, this makes sense since I have an understanding very close to Raoul. Who would have the ability to secrete that picture away from him and to give it to Lockwood so that for whatever purpose they needed it for, such as identifying daggers?
Myself, Carmen, some of the bartenders at the Forbidden Coast, probably some of the dancers as well.
So did he show you the picture when, we informed him that it was stolen? That you would know what you were looking for? Or did you see it earlier?
He asked my opinion on it while he was having it crafted as to whether or not I thought that the daggers would be acceptable, and I said they were quite beautiful.
They are quite, or at least I believe they would be quite beautiful. I've yet to see the real things.
What manner of enchantment?
The manner of enchantment, I think it was a rather nasty one, actually. I'm not so sure that Raoul would be comfortable with me sharing that information.
But, the more information we have, the easier we can work together to get these things located and back in possession.
I'm aware of that.
We'd like to put this mission to rest if possible. How can we move forward?
Work together.
You could storm Adlat's office and, bully your way in and then beat anyone to try to figure out where they are. That would be an option. You could sneak in under cover of darkness. That would be particularly harrowing. Or you could maybe bribe someone in his office to try to get them out. Well, we both were carrying out a similar investigation. I mean, really, when you think about it, it only makes sense that we were both in the same places at the same time. Oh, I do like to play at the docks in the light of the lanterns at night. It's rather relaxing.
What else are you playing at is really the question.
What are you all playing at? Good point. Good question. There's got to be someone on the inside that possibly knows. Um, really, violence against Adlat would not be upsetting to Raoul unless it got back to, Adlet that Raoul.
I wasn't referring to Adlet. I was talking about the person that's
Oh, well, yes. I could see you roughing them up and getting some information out of them. That would be rather uh, brusque, but would achieve your ends.
You seem to have a good relationship with Raoul and son Carmen.
Yes.
What's your relationship with Carmen?
Well, Carmen and I are, like any other two people that work for the same individual. We do our best to work together when called upon, but at the same point, I think we both feel we do our best to work apart. Oh, please, I'm Raoul's favorite. She knows that. I've never thought about it, but it probably makes her feel very jealous. Would be a great motivation to try to get some attention from Raoul, or to perhaps try to cast aspersions upon myself. I feel like it's laughable.
Well, clearly we're being told here that the troubadour has done additional legwork, that it seems as though a well-placed bribe would get us a bit further than a brute force attack or some type of risky incursion into the miniature fortress of this
There's any number of ways to skin a cat. You're all creative. I don't think that I need to my apologies. My apologies. But a well-placed charm spell, perhaps some poison, uh, a little bit of cloak and dagger subterfuge. There's any number of ways that this can be conducted, and you can achieve your goals and bring the daggers back to Antonio. But that said, again, I'm just throwing out options I thought of in the event that I would have to do it. Your mileage may vary. Well, do as you wish. Perhaps that's a good course of action.
We do know that he has access to the estate. We haven't really met anyone else that works for him that I know of.
Oh, most everyone that is inside of that bar works for him in some capacity or another.
Yes, but they would have access to go into his home.
True. Only some of the guards would. The bookkeeper. I think he has a couple of other accountants on staff as well. And then his bodyguard, Ciro.
Why would he take such an overt action against Raoul?
I'd have to hazard a guess. I don't know, other than they have pissing contests every so often where they try to one up of each other, because really, uh, it's sort of game for them. Can't speak too much to the details of such a game, but truly, individuals of this sort, egos get involved. Also, something to hold over, perhaps, if anyone above them were to find out.
Well, I have another question for you then. So his bodyguard, I have not been able to glean much information on him and his across any that we should be aware of?
Oh, I've seen individuals have either spilled drinks or slighted Adlat in the past at some of the bars or in some of the establishments, and in most every instance, in fact, there's none that I can't think of Zero not getting the better of them, either in just general hand-to-hand combat. He wears those uh, metal gauntlets that pack quite a punch should he decide to go unarmed. But he has that blade that he always carries as well. It's particularly wicked should it come to bloodshed. Um, every single time that I've seen Zero act, I've never even heard him break into heavy breathing or anything of that sort. He's rather eerie as he's silent behind that mask of his.
So we're dealing with someone who is quite physically accomplished and has a bit of tact about them, and also knows how to throw a punch or two when necessary.
Cast heat metal.
Right. So that being the case, I think what do we have together that we can get over on this account? Pride.
Grace.
Well, this is going to take some more money in the coffers. I think I'll take my gold piece, and if any others have, special gold pieces together, let's see what we can turn them into so that we can flip this daunting bar tab to get the account intoxicated.
Oh, at that, gentlemen, I think that I'm going to go back to my playing here, so good day to you all.
And what may I call you besides your occupation?
My name is Grayscale.
Thank you, Grayscale. I appreciate your help.
We like 20 feet away. Virgil just thinking he's being kind of sly. It's just kind of lolly. I don't think he was being entirely truthful with us. I don't trust that guy. Looks back at him. Not recognizing how close he is. So weird too.
Right.
Gabriel, as you guys are headed over there, well, it is seeming that the only thing that we are not doing is committing to a course of action. We just need to come up with a plan and stick to it and then carry it out to try our best to regain the dagger. All of them seem like viable options. But perhaps we speak to the accountant again and see if he has nothing. But if he does not, we will have to make a decision one way or the other. What is the term that they use in the Kingsland? Shit or get off the pot.
Let's pawn these gold coins to see how much we can turn them into. Where can we go?
What's the intent of wanting the boys to bribe someone or to get this guy started?
Well, I don't know about you, my friend, but I'm a bit low in the coffers for getting someone else smashed. And
What would that do for us? We gotta get a plan of attack.
He also seems quite happy to get himself drunk.
Yes, I think it's more just kind of a gentle breeze blowing in the same direction he's running, really.
I mean,
No disrespect at all to respect that. But it seems as though you're in search of a perfectly hammered out plan to have in place prior to acting, and I just don't think we'll ever reach that goal.
We haven't even kind of
Get the accountant drunk, we convince him to either help us gain entry or smuggle the daggers out for us.
Yes, I think that's the way to go with this. And like I said, I need to go hawk this gold to see how much I can afford to throw down the stomach of this drunkard. So, Gabriel, would you know where I could this a coin such as this where I could fetch a good price for it?
I'd have to think on it. I haven't been back to the Isles in a number of years, and unless I mean, Alaric might be one of the first choices, but I don't think that he would be interested in anything of a historical fashion of this nature. I'd have to ask around.
All right, if you have it, I was just trying to do my part. That's all.
All right.
Let us go and get this bugger drunk.
Just so we're on the same page, consider that you're Adlet's bookman, and through him, we discovered Adlet's theft of the daggers. Once we threaten to out him, Adlet will be quite furious and possibly take revenge. If not, we out him to Raoul. Raoul will become a criminal. I think this should be sufficient intimidation to get him out of us.
Okay. Well, we'll pick up next game with you guys going to the bar. We'll say that you guys waited around and the accountant, the bookman, is there, and we'll pick up with you guys getting him drunk and where it will go from there. And we'll see if we finally get to some sort of conclusion one way or the other with regards to this dagger situation. That'd be.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want Kane to hang out by that small garden, just talk.
I was planning on myself to sit in one corner while you guys before the silver tongue speak to
And bum fights.
It's bum fights. That's some of the most wild D&D shit.
Hey, Pete, let me know when you cut the recording real quick. Let you guys know something before everybody hops on.
Yeah, sure. 1 second. I'll end the stream right now. Just give me a moment. Stream ending. Stream ending.